depends what you're doing.
Oh, you're grand. You look great, Sherrie. So I can hear you and see you. And thank you for coming on my podcast show. So I'm just going to read a little bio by Sherrie Scott, who I've been working with. How long has it been? Has it been more than a year?
Maybe
You've
a
been
year.
doing work on me.
Yeah, but, sort of on and off, I'd say maybe a year. Yeah.
Yeah, I've really, really noticed a difference. So that's why I wanted to talk to you for Healing for Healers anyway, to talk about some of the stuff we've been getting up to. But just for people who don't know you, Sherrie Scott is a fully certified practitioner of applied biomagnetic therapy, health crisis counseling, shamanism, and herbalism, which I didn't know you were doing herbalism. Very interesting. Her strong healing intention is to clear the traumas and ancestral issues that have kept her clients stuck in old patterns of pain and suffering and enable well-being in the mind, body, heart, and soul of each of her clients. Sherrie currently practices as a biomagnetic therapist at St. Anne's in County Donegal and online. She also runs workshops and well-being retreats that blend meditation, creativity, and healing together. I love this, weaving a tapestry of celebration. I mean, that's beautiful, with creativity and energetics, laughter, yoga, creative writing, felting, costume, grief work and ceremony, soul painting, story and song, movement and groovement, and herbs and scents and rubs and scrubs. That's fantastic. I mean, that's the whole shebang. That's the whole holistic thing.
Yeah, I think it's not one thing really. When you start trying to get the balance in your life, we need all these different things that bring more joy and that bring us more joy with each other as well.
Yeah, that's been really missing, isn't it?
Yeah, lone wolf no more. Yeah.
So how did you get into doing healing work, and how did you get into doing this particular,
Hmm.
what would we call it, a suite of tapestry? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I suppose it was around death really, when my father died, then my mother died, then my husband died, and it was kind of this whole time where people were just leaving. And I had sort of started with Barbara Ann Brennan's book when my dad was ill, and I was just devastated that nothing I did, stopped him from dying. Um, and then when John got ill, we were everywhere and we were doing a lot of holistic things. Or he was, I was bringing him to lots of different holistic things. And then after John died, I got into Louise Hay. I think really Louise Hay's work, when I was in the midst of all that grief, I was just in bed and I had one of her tapes playing just on loop.
Mm.
So I was going nowhere. I was deep down in the bed and that thing that she says, nobody else can eat your food for you, nobody else can drink your water. And until I was ready to do that, nobody else is going to be able to do that. And she had that, you can heal your life book. And I used to teach that then for people that had cancer in Belfast, lots of different groups. I suppose that was the beginning. And then got into the energy work and meditation. I used to go down to Dujinbira a lot at that time in my life. That would have been, John died in 98.
The
So
Dutch and Barra, just for people who don't know, how would you describe that?
beautiful meditation space, time for you to basically, in the meditation room, there's nothing between you and the sea. The sea is just there, and it's a really lovely place. They've got a spiritual care place there now, so that it makes it much more accessible for people who are caring for people, can go and take a bit of respite there as well. So it's really time out. The lovely restaurant, and they've all the Buddhist practice and really coming home to the self.
Kerry.
That's in West Cork.
West Cork, West Cork.
Castletown Bear, yeah.
Yeah, so you went there. It sounds wonderful.
Yeah, I used to go there a lot, and it's all about death in those days, just death, 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 death. Yeah. So eventually I came out of that, and I did the health crisis counselling course along with at the same time an e-media course, like web design and all that kind of thing. So it was like the two sides of the brain were just kind of going, woo, woo, woo. So of course it burnt out then after that. And
Wow.
here I was in Rasnala and Donegal, going, I've just got all these techniques about how to be well. And the one technique that really helped me was to just lie in the window seat and look out at the sky and watch the clouds move by. That was my healing. This too would pass. And, no matter how many techniques I had to just go to ground again. So moving on then a good bit, get to
I
the,
really, I can see, I mean, it opened up such a huge heart space in you.
yeah,
All of the grief and all of the death and all of the clearing out and the healing to put yourself back together it's amazing job. So yeah.
yeah. One foot in front of the other. And then I read Alberto Viola's book, Earth, Shaman Healer Sage, which I just kind of devoured. And I did the Four Winds training and then the Slee and Cree training. And they do the herbalism around the same time, I think so, Gina McGarry. And she has a lovely approach to herbalism. It's real earthy, it's like you're there with the plants right from the beginning. It's you're really living with the plants, and I love that approach. Just really earthy garden. So a big herbal garden here. And then I was in a workshop one day and I fell and I really cut my whole leg very badly. And I was leaving in the joys of life, and for some reason, I don't know if you ever come across those kind of strange things that can happen to you, like you get a jolt or a fall or it's some kind of an energetic thing. I feel it was something that moved me into the next stage, because part of my life is very much about creativity. And in the background of all of this sort of work I'm talking about, I was costume designer, theatre designer, and carnival costume creative workshop facilitator,
Right.
before I got into the healing work. And anyway, I fell and I was using the herbs to heal my leg, and really healed my leg. But there was this sort of red mark all down my leg. And I wasn't sure now, what was I going to do about this? Something wasn't right. And before that happened, I used to do the winter solstice in Dublin with my costumes and flags and everything else. And I met Raymond Cadwell there. He was reciting some of his poetry, and we're just having a chat later on. He was talking about biomagnetics and microbes and all this sort of thing. And I was going, gosh, that sounds fascinating. I'd love to hear more about that. So when I fell, I went, right, maybe this is a job for Raymond, go down and see him. And after 2 or 3 sessions, the coloration in my leg totally left. And it was to do with the microbes that were out of balance in my leg. So it wasn't too long after that I went to San Francisco. Actually, 2 of us went over to do a training with Dr. Goez. And then Raymond has really, moved the whole biomagnetics along big time in Ireland. And he's brought it into the multidimensional field. So biomagnetics is working with the magnetic force. So there's a couple of magnets. You've got the positive and the negative. And we are biomagnetic frequency. And when our frequency goes out of kilter, or another way to speak about it is, when the microbes have gone pathogenic, so that they're making too much of themselves, so the balance has gone out. That's really what we're working with, is to bring the balance back into frequency again. And in an in-person treatment, I would be putting the magnets on the body. And then in a remote treatment, it's more about intention. And so I started working with this in 2014 in Dublin. And I think that's where I met you. You were down in Phillips wellness place down in Dunleary, and I was in the other building up in Patrick Street.
Right. That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good while ago. And I suppose in the beginning, I saw a lot of people with Lyme disease. I still do, but Lyme seemed to be the really big, you know, difficulty that people were coming to us with, because it was very difficult here to get diagnosed or to get anywhere really in the system to even recognize, that there was Lyme disease.
But
And
do you even need to know what the disease is?
no, actually, I mean, some people love to know that they've got a diagnosis, and some people, it's a mystery. I mean, there's so many mystery illnesses anyway. Quite often I'll see people and there's no diagnosis. There's just all these different symptoms that are going on, and nobody seems to know anything about them, or they don't make any sense to any doctor, or there's no movement along the way. So people can come who are on medication or not on medication, both as whatever somebody wants to do. It's available for everybody really.
Would you need to know if they were on medication even?
Oh, I would ask them. Yeah, no, I've got quite
Yeah.
a good intake form that tells me quite a lot about what the story of their life is and what's been going on health-wise, and what a person really wants to work on at the moment.
Mm.
It's
I
been
feel
really amazing since the COVID times, just for the quantum healing. Really amazing for people who couldn't get to see anybody. I'm sure you find that.
biomagnetics through distant healing would be a quantum type of healing.
Yeah, that's what I would call it. Yeah, or sometimes just say online healing or remote healing. Yeah.
Yeah,
But
I find it with myself, having worked with you, incredibly subtle in times and incredibly powerful at other times, but always having long-lasting effect. And I think what's beautiful about it is, and as I was reading your biography there, it makes so much sense now that you would have a qualification in anatomy as well, because we need to know what's going on in the body, but to be able to take the body as a whole and just look at what's going on in any one moment in time, instead of coming from a diagnosis with the treatment that's outside of the body. That's why I think this is so important. And it's incredible really to think that you can balance bacterial infections, fungal infections, and parasites even.
yeah.
Parasites. It's only been striking me recently, Sherrie, that we would deworm our dogs, and they use the parasite treatments on the vet would do it for the cows and the horses and the sheep, but not for people. And I always wondered, why don't we do it for people? Why? What do you think?
People do, they go through these big parasite cleanses, but they're very hard on the body, really hard on the body. And this way of working, I suppose, there's many ways in with a biomagnetic session. I could say I ask the body. So the way it works is that I ask the body, what way does it want to work? And I'm constantly working with the frequency of the body, the energy of the body. I'm not assuming anything, or I'm not saying, oh, somebody maybe has a digestive issue, it must be this, and this little balance. And I think that is what the body, the client just loves, and is that somehow their body is being heard and it's getting the balance that it wants without somebody,
Putting their idea or assumption onto it.
Yeah. And so what I do in a session is, after we've had a chat about what the person wants to work on, I can, find out, does this person want to work with a full scan? So I call out a whole scan of the body, or whether they'd like to work from a microbial point of view. And that way, then I'll ask, do we start with a virus? Do we start with a bacteria, fungus, parasite, or bacterophyte, or whatever? And then as we get into the work, there might be traumas, and the emotional work can often bring ancestral clearing as well. So there's so many different ways to do this work. people often ask me, well, what's it for? What in particular is this for? And it's really for anything and everything, because we are holistic beings, and we are resonating within our families, with our animals, with our environment, with our job, with all of these things. When somebody comes for a session, everybody is there, really.
I'm just thinking about you falling and cutting your leg, and just in that moment, some kind of microbe would have gotten in.
Yeah, yeah.
So we are connected to everything. And I think it's beautiful to have a healing modality that skips the brain and the attitude and the assumption and goes straight to the body and to the frequency and just talks to that. But I suppose, but the people need to be heard as well. So you've got your counseling to go around that too.
Yeah, and like some people love the fact that you're not going into the whole depths over and over and over of the story, because even if somebody came in and they just said, look, this is what's going on, and they only said it in 5 minutes, the body is still going to know what it wants to do.
Yes.
But it's fascinating how just in the chat in the beginning, what comes from that, the resonance between us in having the chat then sets up the treatment of where it wants to go.
That's true. That's true. And it's really interesting to me as well, because I've been working on myself for years and years and years, and I'm there, oh yeah, I've got everything. And then only yesterday you found a trauma that I didn't even know was there. That was when I was 35, and you had it down to a day and time. And so if I was literal, I would be pulling out the calendar, looking up exactly what happened. But that's how the body's holding it. And I think you could be, adding to trauma over and over and over. And that could be just the pinnacle moment where the body said, I've had enough. And ultimately, the release of it is what counts more than the story around what it was or needing to know what
Yeah,
happened.
I know, because sometimes we don't even register in our mind that it's a trauma, but our cells or the rest of our body might have registered it. And yeah, that's what I love. It's just the body holds so much, and quite often you see, everybody is so different, and that's what I love about it as well. Some person might come and say, look, it's this physical thing I want to work with. Maybe it's this, or maybe we work with a physical thing and we get balance on that, and then maybe there's something else shows up or whatever like that. But it can also be a way where I can ask the body, so this pattern that's maybe re-emerged again, what microbes are holding this in the body? So
Oh, I like that question.
yeah, because we are microbes, we are so many millions of microbes. But what particular set of microbes are holding this pattern in place, and how can we go about bringing balance to the body? So it depends, it's lovely working with you, because you've done so much work, and you know what you want to do, and energetically you're working, and you're working spiritually, so you're holistically working all levels of what you want to clear and rebalance. And
I think the more work that you do, the better you get at looking at what you need to do. So
yeah.
that comes with time and practice as well. But you're an expert in asking questions. It's about, you don't get the answers unless you ask the right questions, right?
Yeah, it's fascinating. And then say if it was a bacteria that showed up, well, then I'm asking, is there a parasite in relation to this? Is there a virus in relation to this? And eventually I'll get this whole little, I call them matrices, like a matrix, where you follow on and you follow on, and then that piece is done. And
Okay.
then, you start again and say, okay, what else is happening here? Is there anything else? So maybe a person would have talked about something. They may be talking about a limiting belief that they have about even feeling well, or even having the energy that they want. Even when they get the energy they want, it can be hard to actually believe that they can have it.
Yes.
So we might have to work on that. So there can be layers of work.
So yeah, I was just thinking there's tag teams of parasites, fungi, and bacteria all working against you. And then Sherrie comes along with her magnets and can just get rid of it. But have you ever found, this is what really is really interesting, a specific bacteria, just say, that's linked to a specific limiting belief?
I don't think I don't think my mind, I mean, maybe other biomagnetic therapists could give you that answer, but I think I'm more interested in just doing the thing, and everybody's different. So, you to do with all those virus, fungus, bacteria, they are related to particular illnesses that are, diseases or things like that. But I actually, in the way that I work, I more just work with the parts of the body that I don't go too far into that, because
Yeah, I was just thinking,
another
your gut
story.
health, and
Yeah.
your gut has a knowing. But if all the bacteria in your gut are off, out of balance, or they're bad bacteria, then your knowing is completely off.
Yeah, and
So I was,
I don't know if there's bad bacteria. It's more that they're making too much of themselves, so then balance is out. It's like they've gone, so pathogenic means there's too much, too many of the same thing. And then when you think about maybe a bacteria and a parasite, so they kind of work together. So it's really important to find, if there is a parasite, that you find the bacteria that's working with it, so that balance then is balanced. Because if there was a parasite eating bacteria, and you didn't get the all the bacterias, then the bacteria or the parasite then still going to be eating more.
and
I know
that throws
sounds a
everything out of balance.
bit out there maybe, but do with this sort of work, and it's been amazing over the years, as I say, like Lyme disease, people have brain fog, they have no energy, they have so many different symptoms. And one of the amazing early days, brilliant change that happened for somebody, a girl who had Lyme disease since she was 6, and this is like 20 years later. And she thankfully had found herself in the organic centre in Leitrim there, but her energy would just crash in the afternoon. And she'd come and see me. I think she sort of came twice a week for a couple of months, and then every week and every 2 weeks. But she was so used to not having a life, to not going out or not doing anything. She said one day she was going off to Scotland to have a holiday with her boyfriend. And I says, oh, you'll be having the time of your life and you'll be doing everything. And she says, you know what? I'll probably just see the inside of the hotel room, because, my energy's so bad. And, that's what she did all her life, But when she came back the next treatment, she said, I had a fantastic time. I was up mountains, we were in castles, we were partying. And then I was just amazed to hear this fantastic thing that she had told me. But of course, then she gave too much of her energy away. So we had to come back and balance again. So, but now she's a herbalist herself and has a child, and like so healthy and full of vitality and strength. And it's just so great to see somebody getting their life back.
It's amazing. I mean, when you're describing her symptoms, I was just talking to somebody who says they have long COVID. And I think that's kind of a similar thing with the lethargy and the tiredness and the brain fog and running out of energy very quickly. And I think when you think of everything that's working against us in the world, all of the toxins and the food and the environment and everything, and a friend of mine was just in hospital, I think, for the 3rd time from water poisoning in her own water, just from her water. It's just shocking what's going on. But speaking of water and ancestral healing, I saw a very interesting idea yesterday about how the water that we drink has been through so many people. Do you think it'd be possible we're absorbing ancestral pain through the water, and it's not even our own ancestors genetically, it's just like historical pain? We really are connected in a collective.
Yeah, and water and all the genes as well, I mean, I don't know if you know Vida Austin's work with the water.
I've just heard of her actually. I've just
Amazing. So she has a technique where she kind of freezes the water, and the water kind of speaks through imagery that it creates in the ice. It's just fascinating. And there was a wee girl who she would try the technique out, and she had a wee some water, and she gave her pet mouse a drink out of the water, and then she froze it, and you can see the mouse in the water.
oh my
An image
goodness.
of the mouse in the water.
So what are we drinking? Drinking water.
Well, water is ancient, ancient, ancient. And I do wonder at times, like I live at the sea here, and it's a big part of my life, the water, in the water every morning. And actually, the last couple of nights of the moon, we've been going in at night. There's actually phosphorescence in the water.
Oh my goodness.
Amazing. Yeah. Um, but like when there's a lot of rain, like there has been over the last month or so, like all that water that's coming down through the fields, where does it end up at the sea? Or it comes down through the rivers.
Mm.
So there is a lot of land, whatever the fertilizers and everything they've been putting on but then all of a sudden the sea just clears it all out. It's like it's just ever changing. The ebb and flow of the water just always coming and going and clearing and refreshing, and massive waves today, hardly any waves yesterday. So it's like
All in cycles, isn't it? It's all
lots of
cycles. So could you do biomagnetics on the water, on the ocean?
Yeah, I've never thought of that one. I'll have to give that a go now. Happy you're full of ideas. Yeah.
So if we all got together and did it, it would set the intention. It's like you said, your strong intention. But I think what's really interesting about working with you is that I can have a very strong intention for myself to get better, and it doesn't shift it. I need someone else to do it for me. What do you think that is?
I think we all need support and help, to kind of have a witness and someone to help us, to really know what we know as well. Sometimes we forget what we know and forget the things that we are doing. And we all need that kind of other ear or frequency, that's what I love as well. When we're working together, you're having your experience of the treatment where you are, and then I'm going through all the different things that I'm going through, and then when we come back and talk at the end, it's fascinating, how the similarities are happening in different ways.
Well, you're working on my leg, and I was working on my leg as well.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. So just for anybody who's watching, to obviously it's one thing hearing people talking about this, another thing experiencing it, but the remote healing really is effective, when you connect with a practitioner. And I think what I love about working with Sherrie is we have that little phone call that we really get that energetic connection between us. And then what we would do is hang up, and then she does her thing and I can rest, or I go and do my thing, and then we come back together again. And to try these treatments that might not be accessible in your community, that are online and available that way, it could be something interesting if you haven't tried it before. And I find that the more I evolve, the more the work that's the most effective for me is through the quantum field and the energy work.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. I mean, before COVID, when I did do some energy work, but mostly I saw people in person, and went through different ways of doing the energy work until I got to this way of working. And for a person who used to have to get into their car and drive for miles, and then get off the plinth and get into the car, and especially in Dublin, and deal with the traffic and everything. It's such a different way where someone can lie in their bed or on the sofa and just, have someone hold the space for them in time to relax. And some people like to be on the call as well, and other people say, no, I'll just, I'll connect with you later. It's up to whatever people want to do. But the fact that then you can just roll over and have another wee snooze in the zone, because that's what the thing is. It's so hard to get into the zone, the healing zone sometimes. And then when we're there, it's nice to stay there for a bit longer.
Well, I do. I find that myself when I'm doing sessions with people too. I would say you need 20 minutes. Don't talk to anybody else. Take time for contemplation, resting time, because I think that amplifies the full benefit of any healing session with someone is the time that you take afterwards to honor the fact that you've just gone through a process and you need that time for embodiment, for recalibration, for grounding. You'd be rushing off after a healing session to go and do something else. It's like you lose some of that goodness.
Yeah. It's true. It's just so nice to relax. And a lot of the times people fall asleep, they're just so relaxed. I remember one time a person came and they were going, my sleep is just so bad, it's so bad, I can't sleep. And I said, well, you might sleep now in this session today. This isn't an in-person session. She says, oh, that'll be some job now if you get me sleeping. And the next thing she was snoring her head off. And even for sleep, it can really help a lot. But I always think that when a person falls asleep, that there's another healing modality going on as well. I'm doing what I'm doing, and then they're getting a nice relax, and some other spiritual healing is happening too.
I think so too. Yeah, when people saying, well, did I get the healing because I fell asleep during the session? And it's like, oh, you probably got more.
Yeah.
Probably got more. Because our brain does get in the way, doesn't it, of healing?
Yeah, and like I remember so many different ways in with this kind of a healing. There was a guy came years ago and he had Lyme, but what showed up with him was moles. And we used to do moles, 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 moles. Every time he came, it was moles, moles, moles. And it's like there was something held in the moles on his body, and he had loads of moles on his body. And he had no energy, and he was a musician, and he was amazing musician, but his energy would just crash. And we must have maybe worked for a year or more working with, and I couldn't believe how many times it was moles. Because we can look at scars or bites, or people have said with scars even that they felt the scar was never right, and then it can feel that something has settled in the scar. But he then got better, went to America and has his own band out there and never looked back. And just people have had issues for years and years and years, and then something just changes. It's great to see that.
But I mean, it's not in a straight line though, is it, healing?
No. It's not just somebody is the healer. It's like we are in it together. So it's like we're working together to make something happen. I often would ask somebody, what if you've got any creative practice, or is there anything that you do, that brings the joy, what do you love, what is it, to bring some of those things in, because that all makes us feel good and develop something else in us. I know I would be nothing without creativity.
I was going to ask, would that be part of your self-care?
Oh yeah, and it's like, when you think of figure eight, which is a lovely exercise to do as well, but that's like my healing, my creativity, my healing, my creativity, and it's bringing those two together, that really helps and supports me, in what I do. Yeah, so that could be writing, it could be painting, it could be making something in nature, it could be weaving or anything and everything.
What's coming up for me as you're talking, Sherrie, is your shamanic background and the ability that we would have to be with what's in front of us right now.
Yeah.
So we're not coming from a structure of what's in the book and what the practice is over there and how to apply the practice to the person. It's more about what the person needs in the moment. Yeah. And yet being confident enough to be able to be with the person in the moment, whatever comes up for them in that moment. And I think that that's what's missing from clinical medicine. What about you?
Yeah, to be able to just stay there with that, whatever's here right now. Yeah, I definitely agree with you. And then that allows the person to be there with that as well, you know, rather than sort of just skirting over it, or, you know, flying on to the next thing, or not giving it value. That, you know, right here, right now, with what the feelings are.
And I'm feeling that in my heart, because I'm thinking of you going through all that grief that
Mm,
opens you out to give you the infinite space to hold someone, to say it's okay, you survived this, and I've done it, and now you can. It's like a birthing through
yeah,
this the holding of space. And I would love to see more and more people coming to this type of medicine as their medicine.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
because this is, I mean, how many people would you say, of all the people that you've treated, have gone back to the same issues again and again? I mean, I'm sure they come back. I mean, I know I've come back to you, but when I've come back, it's different layers of different things. But
Different layers, yeah. It's different layers, like all the layers in our energy fields as well, you know, and
no, it's not
maybe
the same problem coming back again, and the same problem coming. You don't see that, do you?
well, it can be sometimes, but generally it's a different aspect, you know. But what I'm finding recently is that there's much more anxiety and much more fear in people. So I find that there might be something coming up from the past. The past is coming up a lot more as we get older. I think it comes up more. And then if there's something holding that in the body, that's where the biomagnetics can help to bring a bit of relief and release and balance again with that. But yeah, somebody might come with one particular thing and they work with that, and then behind that, maybe something else comes up, maybe some
Yeah.
old thing. It's nearly like you take the top off, and then there's something else there. But do you know the way that's the way when you are really upset and you cry and you think you're never going to stop crying, and you know, if I start to cry now, I'll never stop. But of course we do, and it's, you know, we need to cry, we need to release and to let it out. And we've so often kind of just trying to keep it in, and no, I'm not going there because I'll never come out of it. And to trust ourselves, you know, that we can come out. And
Well, that woman who couldn't sleep needed someone to hold a space for her, so she felt safe to sleep, possibly.
yeah, yeah,
So holding a space for someone to cry, which
right.
leads me to think of how beautifully interconnected you holding ceremonies and retreats as giving that space to groups, which is what people need now too. I mean, and people in groups are now holding each other as well more.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, I do wellness days for women every Celtic festival. So I have another one coming up now for the autumn equinox on the 16th of September in Ballyshannon here in St Anne's, where I work in Donegal. But you know, the equinox, we often think about it, you know, balance, but the opposite, the balance is of opposites, you know. It's like this is different from that, and then it's to try and find the balance. But you know, when you think about the seesaw, you know, the sitting in the middle, a friend of mine, an old friend, Howard Campbell, he always said balance is actually boring. You know, if you sit in
I
the
was
middle,
kind of thinking that.
it's really boring. You know, the fun is out here at the end of the seesaw. You're going up, you're going down, you're up and down. But then we're here in the middle, and you know, it's that kind of thing that this spits down, that spits up. But if we can keep coming back to ourselves, back home to ourselves, you know, then we can have the fun out of the edges. That helps us to have fun as well. Yeah.
I mean, because it's like over a period of time to have the balance, if you zoom out of your week, as opposed to doing everything in the moment. You're not always in balance in the moment, but over a period of time
Mm-hmm.
to be in balance. So how would you look after yourself when you're looking after so many people?
Mm-hmm. Was say I'm in swimming every morning, and then I give a big loud yell and scream and roar and sing, and me and my friend Susan are in there every morning. And if the weather's good, then I'll do some qigong on the beach then as well. That's gorgeous, just at the sea. And as I say, the creativity then as well, and the garden, just making sure that there's time for friends to go to meet people and have some food together. I love that. And I suppose when I'm actually working, I just always love that one. It's just a very basic one: hand in the heart, hand in the belly, and just breathing, where you can feel the breath in your belly. I would quite often do that, in between sessions, just coming back to me, or I would get out and just find something that nourishes me out in the garden. Nourishment, even wherever you are, we can find, the nourishment in a color, or, in a shape or anything. And
song, you can always play a song or sing.
Music's good. Yeah.
So you're saying that you're seeing a lot more anxiety and fear at the moment.
Yeah. It's like it's deep rooted after the whole COVID thing, where people, were so fearful for themselves, their families, for what's coming, for, losing freedoms. And then that anxiety shows up, because sometimes anxiety can be a tricky one to actually pinpoint. To know, actually, this is anxiety that I'm feeling right now. So we can, in the biomagnetics, it gives them a place to talk about that fear, because sometimes, well, where do you talk to anybody about these things, these strange things that are happening? Some people don't have anywhere to talk about, or nobody to listen or understand, or give them the time to listen. So yeah, there's a lot to do with emotions and trapped emotions that can free up the anxiety, and even be ancestral anxiety that's coming through as well.
And could you clear that with biomagnetics as well?
Yeah, so it can be amazing that not only is the person showing up and they're clearing anxiety for them, but if there was anxiety maybe on the mother's line or the father's line, then I go through and I clear for any of
14 generations through the mother. I'm just remembering one of our sessions.
Yeah, I know, amazing.
14 generations. It's amazing.
It really is, once we start working with the energy frequency, and the body just keeps showing what it needs, and if we can stand out of the way of thinking, whatever we might think about it, but just do, just enable what the body wants. It's really, really amazing what can happen, because it can be big shifts happen in the whole family community then as well.
Yes, absolutely. So I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with me today. And I think, of all the modalities that many people hear about, biomagnetics isn't one that you hear about very often. So I just think it's wonderful to get the word out. We'll put links beside the video on the podcast of how to find Sherrie, but also maybe how to find, is there like a main biomagnetics association or?
Yeah, there's applied biomagnetic, what is it? Biomagnetism.ie, I think it is. Yeah.
So I'll get that from you. We put the links.
I'll just make sure of that. Yeah.
Yeah,
it's
fascinating.
you can see lots of different therapists on there, and people, some people, like, I'm saying that it's amazing for so many things. I mean, the COVID and the long COVID, that's been amazing for people to just clear with that. But it can't be anything. Like, I remember one woman, she had a UTI anyway. She couldn't, there was no urine moving, and she sent me a wee testimony on the next day, and she said, and Sherrie Scott had me peeing like a racehorse. And I go, what's going on? Even people be thinking, what does Sherrie Scott do?
Well, she didn't say she was pissed off after the session.
But yeah,
Was
you
there
know, like,
anything that did you ever get really unexpected results or a really remarkable, change or a shift
well,
from?
that was, in one session, it was just immediate after the session. Yeah. People think with a lot of those more difficult digestive issues, ulcerative colitis, that there's no way back from that. But I worked with a woman who was just, she had no life because she just was on the loo all the time. She couldn't go out anywhere, it was awful. And within maybe 2 or 3 months, that all turned around for her, and her whole system has come back on track. And we had a few other things to work on then after that, but that was amazing.
So
Yeah.
would that help with, let's say, really heavy intensive chemicals from, let's say, a chemotherapy treatment or something like that? Can you help bring the body
Yeah.
back in? So I'm
Yeah.
going to be sending loads of, so everybody, Sherrie's going to be very busy.
Yeah. Thanks, Abby. And if someone is having treatment like that, I'll always check it. It might not be the right time right now, but we check in for later, and there will be a right time. And some people that are not going for all the chemo and everything, that's fine. But if someone's in the middle of having chemo, I have to really check and see
Oh,
that.
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. The body needs to be able to.
Yeah, but no, it's for people who are choosing not to have any chemo, it's great because it can really get down to bringing some more balance to the body again, for sure.
So
Yeah,
tell people that we've got your website, we've got the biomagnetics website, you've got retreat coming up. Do you put these on your website if they're regular?
yeah.
Um,
This one, it'll be on there, and that the retreat is a kind of a mixture of creativity, meditation, and there'll be something about the Celtic festival. Maybe we'll be outside. There'll be an earth mandala. There'll be different things for each season, for each festival. But
if you ever think about teaching, Sherrie,
no.
I'm planting a seed.
You are, girl. But I think in those kind of days, I suppose I'm teaching a bit. But do you mean teaching biomagnetics?
Well, what I'm really feeling is that we're in a liminal space where more people are waking up, more people are seeing what isn't working, and they're wanting something that is working. So I have a sense that we might need a whole load more practitioners who work like you, who think like you, in a holistic,
Yeah.
amazing, so that's why when we are the healers, we then become the teachers of healers who then bring more healing in. So that's kind of the vision that
Yeah.
I'm holding. Yeah.
Never know, Abby. You never know what'll happen. It's a blue moon.
It was a blue moon, so Well, look, we'll leave it there for now, and I'm
Thank you
sure
so
I'll have
much.
you on again. Thank you, Sherrie, so much. It was such a gift to get you, and I learned a lot about you.
It's
So
lovely to chat to you. Thank you so much. Now, it was a joy to do this with you today. So, all the best, and
thank
thank you.
you.